Hey everyone, welcome to the NFL edition of the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for January 11th, 2017, brought to you by FantasyLabs. I'm Matthew Freedman, the editor-in-chief. I'm joined by podcast regulars Adam Levitan and Peter Jennings on Twitter at Adam Levitan and COCRAM88. Also joining the show is Sean Koerner at _oddsmaker. He's the director of predictive analytics for Stats and the most accurate NFL predictor at Fantasy Pros over the last 4 years. He just wrapped up the 2016 season with his second straight number one overall finish, and he was on the Week 10 show, I believe, and it was awesome. Sean, welcome back to the Flex.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have you on the show again. How was the wild card round for you?
It was good in cash. I had the nuts in cash. I thought it was pretty straightforward. So, I had Rodgers everywhere. Zach Zenner made it pretty easy to fit in everybody I wanted. So I did really well. GPPs, I kind of bombed it. I knew that you basically need to take some shot in the dark wide receiver, and my pick was Sammy Coates. So that didn't pan out. But I was trying to hope, try to get the Randall Cobb random 3-touchdown game. It just didn't work out. But I did really well in cash.
Sammy Coates got one snap. It's unlucky that you didn't have. It's unlucky you didn't get a good game out of that one snap.
Yeah, well, I thought his hand might have been healed by now. They'd unleashed.
No, I played him in one lineup too. I think it was fine. Yeah, I played him.
Levitan, how did it go for you?
Yeah, I actually thought Ben was pretty clearly a better play than Rodgers, so I was able to escape with a small win because of that, but Sean's obviously sharper than me. He obviously liked Rodgers more than Ben, so that was kind of a pretty big difference maker there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Rodgers basically lapped all the other quarterbacks. Pete, how about you?
Yeah, it was a great cash game week for me. It was looking like an epic weekend until the second half of the Packers game. I did have some Rodgers, but didn't have any Cobb or Rawls, so GPPs didn't work out. Was looking really good with Big Ben and GPPs, who was low-owned as well, but just bad game flow for him and didn't pan out. But, yeah, Zenner, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell were nice in cash games. That was basically what you needed. Or, sub one of those guys out and have Aaron Rodgers and something else. So worked out pretty well in cash and just not a good GPP weekend.
Yeah. In terms of skill game propositions, Levitan was the man at 11-5-1. Sorry, no, not one, just 11-5. I was the worst at 6-10. I was just giving away way too much equity. The equity train stops this week, boys. FYI. Anyway, for the season, Adam is above 500 at 108-107. Pete is 123-128. I'm at 79-64, and the guests are 92-103. So, Sean, you were part of the mid-season hot streak that our guest had, and obviously, a couple of things about ranking and projections and stuff like that. Do you find that ranking and decision making is easier or harder for smaller slates?
It definitely makes it easier. Smaller slate, there isn't too many routes to go. For someone like me, it kind of helps me out in GPPs because there isn't, too many extreme cases. But I still think I'm going to stick to mostly cash and single entry. When it comes to these, just like last week, the receivers, there's no way I would have ended up with Cobb or Tavares King or Andre Holmes. Everything's magnified in a 4-game slate, so you got to be extra careful. So I think there is still enough skill there for us to take advantage of the cash games.
Mm-hmm. Now, the slate has some subpar quarterbacks like Alex Smith and Mock Osweiler, but in general, the slate has a lot of high-quality quarterbacks and other position players in comparison to the wild card round. How does that change the way you approach the slate, just like the heightened quality of this group of players?
Yeah, I think this week it definitely lends to you can take a mid-range QB. I'm not going down to Osweiler or anything, but I think Dak, Alex Smith, they're reasonable options where you can take them and then take a couple stud running backs. And you're going to have to take your crapshoots at wide receiver again this week. But I think it sets up better to, you could fit in Le'Veon and Zeke if you want to, if you take someone like Alex Smith.
Pete, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I really like actually like Alex Smith, and I've been the Alex Smith guy all year relative to everyone else, which I haven't rostered him that much, but I do think that there's more upside than what people think, and he's actually been somewhat consistent, especially now that he's running more. So I like saving at quarterback on DraftKings, especially with how many studs there are at other positions. And yeah, I think Alex Smith makes a lot of sense. I also really like Dak Prescott, so sounds like I'm on a similar page as Sean. In terms of roster construction, I mean, I'm just going to struggle to get some of these higher end guys in there because I want to play other studs. So, yeah, especially with Alex Smith running, I'm sure we'll have some props there, Levitan, because he's shaking his head. But
Pete, what does it mean to be the Alex Smith guy while you also say, I really don't roster him at all?
Well, I just say he's like I have some GPP exposure almost every week, and it didn't really pan out this year, but I was just basically banking on the rushing upside that he really showed at the end of the year. And the one game where he definitely would have been a great GPP play, whatever, that Poe guy threw a 1-yard touchdown against the Broncos. So there's been some bad variance for him, but he's been relatively consistent. I mean, he's 5,400 on DraftKings. Like, I just don't see I don't see other alternatives relative to spending up in terms of roster construction. I think that he makes a lot of sense. So I like Dak a lot too, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I'm an Alex Smith truther this week, I guess.
Yeah, so before we went live here, we were talking about kind of the Bulls situation tonight, and I think, we could maybe compare Doug McDermott to Alex Smith a little bit. These guys have give Doug McDermott 80 minutes and he might score 20 fantasy points. How many 3-touchdown games does Alex Smith have in the last 2 years? Like maybe one?
He has 3 rushing touchdowns his last 3 weeks. Every week he scored a rushing touchdown down the stretch, went over 23 DraftKings points the last 2 weeks. And that's with getting a touchdown vultured by a 330-pound defensive lineman. So,
right. In a spot you never would have considered him against Denver, right? I mean,
I wouldn't have considered him against Denver, but 25.66 points last game.
Yeah. So the rushing is a totally different story. I agree. If we can project him for serious rushing and touchdown equity, that's a totally different story. From a throwing perspective, I just think Dak is – from a running and throwing perspective, I just think for 600 more, Dak is way better. I don't know. Just feels to me a way better ceiling projection in this specific matchup against Green Bay. So I agree. Like, if you want to be on Team Jam Min this week, and obviously Team Jam Min this week means Bell and Ezekiel, we're going to have to do some weird things. And maybe a weird thing is Alex Smith. For me, I think the weird thing might rather be Dak than Alex Smith, but we'll see.
All right.
Just to be clear, I love Dak too. I probably had to choose one. I'd take Dak, but I do think those are the 2 options for me in cash.
Yeah. Well, let's continue talking about this because there's the question of how chalky those guys are going to be and whether they are the primary guys you would want in your cash game lineups. Sean, let's start with you. Who are the potential chalky guys that you're fine with being in your cash game core?
Le'Veon Bell is pretty obvious. He's a free square at this point. But the other guy I'm getting everywhere is Edelman. He's priced down way too much this week. You have Devontae Adams, higher price than him. Edelman gives you the great high floor, and he's affordable. Some of the other receivers have, tougher matchups. They're in pretty tough spots. So I think Edelman's just a no-brainer play on most sites that I'm looking at for this week as well.
Mm-hmm. Adam?
Yeah, so I think most people will be like, let me start with Le'Veon and Zeke and see what I can do from there. And I think that's going to push some ownership down to guys like Jared Cook, to guys like Paul Richardson, on DraftKings specifically. On FanDuel, like, they didn't raise Randall Cobb's price. And we can talk about Randall Cobb because I think he might be an interesting fade. I'm not sure. But because on FanDuel, he's just going to be massively owned. On DraftKings, he's 5,700. That's more realistic. But yeah, I think if you do that Zeke and Bell route, you might have to consider Dion Lewis. You may have to consider Alex Smith / Dak, and you may have to consider Jared Cook and stuff like that. But yeah, I think a lot of the main construction that people are going to do is Zeke and Le'Veon and see what they can do from there.
No, for sure. I definitely want to talk more about Dion Lewis here down the throughout the pod, but I think one guy who's going to be pretty chalky that you hit on is Paul Richardson. I think he'll be really popular on DraftKings. Certainly think he makes a lot of sense at that price because you do need savings. Edelman's another guy I was going to bring up. I think he's way too cheap on FanDuel. DraftKings, he's certainly in consideration as well. The other chalk plays might end up being someone like Devontae Freeman, who I'm curious your guys' opinion on. I think he should be pretty involved in the passing game, and his price is really cheap on DraftKings. I mean, he's $1,000 less than Thomas Rawls. So I've seen a lot of people tout him already, which is interesting considering he's going against Seattle. But if you need savings, that's certainly a spot that certainly makes sense. Spencer Ware is another guy in that range that I think could be really interesting. Same with LeGarrette Blount. So those mid-range guys, I'm curious how ownership breaks down on them. But Sean, do you have an opinion on Dion Lewis this week?
Yeah, I was looking at him. He's definitely too cheap. But I mean, if you go back and look, the past 4 games, he hasn't broken double-digit receiving yards. So I don't know what's going on there. He obviously has huge receiving upside, but it just hasn't been there. He is getting the touches though. He's getting double-digit carries a game. I think he's more of a tournament play. I'm not touching him in cash. I don't think, not this week. But yeah, he's intriguing in tournaments. I still haven't decided if he's going to be higher owned because he's so cheap, or if people are going to overlook him. So he's a guy that I'm going to be looking throughout the week to figure out where exactly I am on the guy.
Levitan, do you have any thoughts on his ownership?
Yeah, so my initial thought was to be pretty low. Let me see what I have here. I think the deal is that when they're in I have 9 to 12% right now on DK and 5 to 8 on DraftKings on FanDuel. I think it's interesting. Like, I'd have to go back and watch more Patriots games, but from what I've seen is that they're using Blount and Dion Lewis as their primary runners, and in passing situations such as 2-minute, third down, it's been James White. So if you take away kind of that pass catching role from Dion Lewis, I don't mean take it away as in he can't catch passes, as in he's not the 2-minute, 4-minute back, which is obviously a pretty valuable role for the Patriots, that he just certainly takes a hit. But at 3,900, even if he's just a change of pace to LeGarrette and he can project him for 2 to 3 catches, like, that's not bad. So yeah, I think he's interesting and somebody that we should look at.
Yeah, we should definitely come back to thinking about this this Patriots game. I could see how we come back to this in the skill game prop portion of the show. But Levitan, you mentioned the possibility of Cobb as a fade. Can you talk a little bit more about your thoughts on him and then some of the other players you might be looking to fade and maybe pivot to?
Yeah, so I think that's the story of the week, right? Like, we're kind of bearing the lead here. Jordy Nelson almost certainly isn't going to play. I mean, broke 2 of his ribs last week, and I think that's kind of the story of the week. A, how do you think Aaron Rodgers can perform without Jordy Nelson? B, how do you think Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb can perform as primary receivers? And C, do you think Geronimo Allison, who is ticketed for, 75 to 80% of the snaps in the Packers 3-wide base now, how confident do you feel in him against the Cowboys? My initial thought is that last year Cobb struggled so badly with Jordy off the field. I mean, Cobb was almost unusable last year when Jordy was out for the year with his ACL injury. Last week, obviously everybody's going to play him because last week he caught 3 touchdowns. He did only catch 5 balls. One of them was a Hail Mary. The good news is his ankle looks fine. I don't know. Like, I think on FanDuel specifically, he could give you like 40, 50%. And in that case, I think any receiver is worth a fade. But I'm curious what you guys think. I mean, do we expect Aaron Rodgers to keep playing at the level he's been playing at, given that he's on the road and without his number 1 receiver? And if we do, is it Cobb for sure?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how ownership breaks down between those receivers, anticipating Jordy to miss as well, which I certainly think was a big part of him starting to play so well, and that being Aaron Rodgers. He did play incredible when he was down, though, last week against a really good defense, if not the best defense in the Giants, but that was at home. So, it's nice. He's indoors in Dallas. The big concern is that Dallas hogs the ball here, but I certainly think you want exposure to that passing game, like I said before, because Aaron Rodgers is so expensive and you want to jam in Le'Veon and Ezekiel Elliott, you probably want to get exposure to the passing game through the receivers. So I think Cobb makes sense on FanDuel, almost inevitably be fading him on DraftKings. Geronimo Allison's certainly interesting. Not sure if he'll be a cash game guy. Sean, do you have a preference on Allison versus, say, someone like Paul Richardson?
Let me see. I would prefer Allison. Yeah, but their price points are pretty far apart. Allison's $600 more expensive than DK, so I mean at that point I would almost consider Richardson, but they're very close.
Well, on DraftKings, I have Allison at 39.
Oh, that's FanDuel. Yeah.
I think it's more of a conversation on DraftKings. FanDuel,
yeah,
he's more expensive.
Yeah, you're right. Then I would lean Allison in that spot. But they're actually my fade, all Packer wide receivers. They're my chalky fades. I think people are going to gravitate to Adams, Cobb, obviously, and Allison this week, and I'm just going to be pivoting. I think there's guys in those price points that I like better. And I'm actually getting, Jared Cook everywhere right now. So I'm also going to – this is another week where I'm going to be pretty heavy on Ty Montgomery, and I've never been right about him once this year. So if you can take that narrative. But I like Monty this week. I think they're going to have to lean on him a bit more this week. So I'm gravitating towards more Ty and Cook exposure versus the Packer wide receivers.
I'm curious a little bit more about Geronimo Allison. So he feels like sort of like Jarrett Boykin of this season, where, Boykin had some production, but he wasn't really a guy you wanted to rely on all that much. Allison seems, he's an undrafted rookie. He wasn't really all that productive in college. He doesn't have outstanding athleticism. Like, part of me just looks at this and I would think, like, why would I want to put this guy in a lineup? But I guess if he's going to get the snaps, it seems like he's a possibility. But, how confident do you guys actually feel about him?
No, I think the answer is that have we seen a quarterback play at the level that Aaron Rodgers is playing at right now, like in recent memory? You know what I mean? Like, I thought that the Giants would be able to hold them to 24, 26 points or something, and it would be a slower game, a tougher grind for Rodgers, and he just comes out and smashes, and now he gets this Dallas defense, which he should be able to shred. I think the question is about Allison. It's just like, do we think Rodgers can sustain this all-world level? And if so, Allison, it'd be hard for him not to benefit,
Mm-hmm. He has like a 75%, conversion rate on Hail Marys. That's got to be sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. He's playing out of his mind. When you're fading him, there's nothing worse than when he just dances around, moves around in the pocket, and then just hits people. So Aaron Rodgers, certainly I was on the wrong side of him these last couple of weeks. He did have GPP exposure, but not in cash, and he definitely ran me down. So it's hard fading it, but I guess the one reason to feel comfortable is, I think Dallas should be able to really do whatever they want on offense. That should mean a big advantage for them in terms of time of possession.
Pete, what are you thinking in terms of the other players you might be looking to fade this week?
Ty Fluke.
No, well, we haven't even talked about Ty Freak yet, but I'll have him in tournaments. I know Sean will hate that one because he's sharp, but I guess the guy I'm probably looking to fade the most is Rawls at this point. I think he's interesting, certainly in tournaments, but I think a lot of people will pay up for him. And like I mentioned before, especially on DraftKings, I like a lot of these guys who are cheap or better. He was awful before, and their offensive line was really bad. I know Atlanta running backs have had a lot of success against them, but give me Freeman, give me Blunt, give me Montgomery, even give me Spencer Ware. So on DraftKings, I think Thomas Rawls is a pretty easy fade for me. I'm going to either pay up for Le'Veon or Zeke or go down to some of those other guys.
All right, and then let's talk about some of the guys you might be looking to stack this week, the more conventional stacks. And Pete, let's start with you.
Well, the most obvious stack is the Chiefs D with Ty Freak. That's the double dip stack that you want exposure to here. I certainly will have that a lot in tournaments. But, yeah, in terms of what I think will be, popular stacks in DraftKings, Dak to Dez Bryant seems like a really, really good option. Dak at $6K, Dez Bryant at $6,600. Green Bay secondary is just a total mess. If Odell Beckham wouldn't have been partying out in the boat and running around with his shirt off, maybe he would have caught some balls. He could have a huge game, honestly. So that's the stack that I like a lot. I think Sean mentioned Edelman, certainly like Brady to Edelman quite a bit too. And then Matt Ryan to Julio. I'm curious what Levitan thinks of that. I know that you normally don't take receivers, especially on the outside against Seattle, but their secondary, I don't know if it's the same right now, especially without Earl Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah, and these two teams played, and Julio recently, and I mean, Julio just ripped him up, and they moved Julio all over the formation. It's not a big concern for me. I was reading today that, Julio's obviously had 2 more weeks to heal up his toe. I think he'll be 100%, so I have no problem whatsoever. I mean, let's be honest, Atlanta's team total is among the highest on the slate. I think it's up at like 28 points, like no Earl Thomas going on the road. I think we've underestimated Atlanta's offense as a whole, and I'm not going to be scared off by a matchup here about playing Ryan to Julio. I think that's totally fine. And yeah, I think I'm not that I'm on it, but I think the most popular stack this week will be Rodgers to Randall Cobb.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm probably going to have a lot of Brady and Edelman, but I'm also going to stick with Wilson and Baldwin. I feel like they owe me. So I'm going to have a lot of Ty Montgomery, Russell Wilson, and Doug Baldwin teams because, I mean, Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin was probably my most used stack this year. And I think the 1 week I really laid off was when Baldwin scored the 3 touchdowns. So I feel like this is the last week I get to do that. So they owe me. So I'm going with them as the conventional stack this week.
And they owe me is always the best reason to stack some players.
Yeah.
Going back to one thing Adam said, the Falcons have consistently hit over their implied point total this year. So, I mean, if you're going to stack, it seems like that's a team that you want to be a little bit heavier on with stacking. Like consistently, they're hitting over their implied total.
Yeah. And we should also, I know we don't have them now, but like the numbers with and without Earl Thomas in the lineup are striking for Seattle's defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are. Let's talk about some of the unconventional stacks we might be going for if we want to be a little contrarian. And Sean, let's start with you. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, for a 4-game slate, it doesn't take much to be too contrarian. So I think something like a Big Ben and Eli Rogers stack might be a good way to be just a little contrarian. You usually want to stack Big Ben with Antonio Brown or just fade Big Ben altogether on the road. But I think Big Ben, Eli Rogers stack might be kind of sneaky. And then the shot in the dark stack is Dak and Terrence Williams. For some reason, I like Terrence Williams as just the random dart throw wide receiver this week. I don't think anybody's going to be on him, but he's always on the field and always a threat for 60-yard touchdown. So might have some exposure to him this week. Just as more of a unconventional stack with Dak.
Sean, I was scared you were going to say Osweiler and Hopkins.
Oh, no. Yeah, if anything, I mean, I would probably go Osweiler and Fuller if I'm going that crazy. No, I'm not touching Osweiler at all this week.
Pete?
Well, I'm going to go back to Alex Smith. I think Alex Smith to Kelsey will probably be lower owned relatively because it's hard to pay up for Kelsey if you wanted to jam in these other guys. So I certainly like that quite a bit. Also, for savings in the same kind of philosophy, I love Dak to Jason Witten. I think that can make a lot of sense. Obviously, it's not exciting taking a dad runner like Jason Witten, but at 3,500 with Dak at 6K, it certainly opens up quite a bit more. And I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan played him a ton down the stretch of the season, and he paid huge dividends. And I just think that this Atlanta offense is going to be able to win against the Seattle defense at home. And I think a lot of people in general will be scared to take Atlanta guys just because we've been so conditioned to fade guys against Seattle. So that's what I'm really trying to figure out. I know Julio makes the most sense just because of his upside, but trying to figure out potentially maybe a Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman stack. Hopefully it works out with a passing touchdown. Potentially looking at some other guys. Adam, do you have any preference on potentially someone else outside of Julio with Matt Ryan?
Yeah, so I expect Taylor Gabriel to be back for this game, which means Lord Aldrich will probably see very few snaps and targets at all. So we'll likely see a 3-wide base of Sanu, Julio, and Taylor Gabriel. I don't expect the tight ends to be a factor with Austin Hooper. So, I think, the best play is Freeman, Julio, and Matt Ryan. I don't know if you can fit that too comfortably in the salary cap, but I think you have a pretty good shot at getting all the touchdowns there despite Julio's lack of red zone usage lately. So, yeah, I think that's totally fine, especially playing Matt Ryan with Devontae Freeman's like never bad, like trying to get all of Atlanta's touchdowns. And you can project Devontae Freeman for like 5-6 targets in a game pretty easily. The one I had written down here, I don't think we have to go Ben, Eli, Rogers to be contrarian. I actually think Ben Antonio will not be that owned. I mean, nobody wants to play Ben on the road. Everybody was disappointed in him last week, even though it was when Antonio Brown scored that second touchdown, my pants were like literally off. Like I was just like ready to go completely berserk. You know what I mean? So it wasn't his fault. Like him and Antonio could have had like 100 DK points combined. Like it would have been a total smash fest if Miami could have kept their nose in the game.
Somehow Antonio Brown wasn't owned last week in like the 5Ks and stuff like that. My money was just skyrocketing after that second touchdown. We're going nuts. And of course I post some links to some friends. I'm like, I'm looking pretty good. And then, but everything goes downhill. So
yeah. After the second touchdown, I thought I was going to have my best day of the entire season. Like I really did. And then I turned out to be like a small winner. It's so tilting. So yeah, I don't think people are going to play Ben that much. And yeah, I have Antonio, I think in like 20s for ownership, but I have Ben really low, maybe like 5 to 8. So I don't think you have to go off the board completely. I think you can play Ben and Antonio and be contrarian. And then one guy we didn't mention, I mean, nobody's mentioned Russ, who I don't love the spot for Russ, but if we want to be contrarian, I mean, Atlanta's defense without Desmond Trufant, I think is extremely exploitable. And you can play him with Jimmy Graham to be contrarian. You can play him with Baldwin and probably be fine. It's just this offensive line concerns me. Like they're so shaky and going on the road. Like if they get rattled at all, there's just like a sieve that just like collapses and it's just lights out for Seattle if that happens.
One other guy that might be a possibility is Tevin Coleman. He's sort of like the poor man's Devonta Freeman, but he has 11 touchdowns in 13 games. He has almost 1,000 yards on the season. He catches the ball at, I think, over a 75% catch rate. I mean, he's a guy that, I think he has touchdowns in 8 of 13 games. He has upside there, but it seems like he's always the person you don't want to start because you would rather start someone else. But I think that gives him the potential for really low ownership, but still a lot of touchdown equity. Curious if anyone had some thoughts there.
He's usually the guy I'm rooting doesn't score, because I'm going to have exposure elsewhere on the team. So the games where he scores, 2 touchdowns, I'm usually tilting over it because I have Julio or Freeman. So I usually just fade Coleman and hope he doesn't, score a couple touchdowns in his relatively few touches. So I'm probably not going to be targeting, but, that usually burns me.
Yeah.
My worst week ever in NFL DFS was, I think, last year, week 2, and I loaded up all in on Tevin Coleman because I thought he was the more talented guy in a great matchup, and that's when he cracked his ribs. So since then, it's just been another disaster for me. I'm always on the wrong side of Coleman. So I'm fading him this week for the most part, I think. So load up on him if you want to win some money.
All right, let's get to some of the bold calls here, and who wants to go first? Pete, do you want to go first? You're a bold guy.
I'd love to go last if possible.
I'll go first. I want to take over 1.5 touchdowns on LeGarrette Blount.
Nice. I think that's sufficiently bold, but I like that. You want some time?
That wasn't. We weren't at the props section. I forgot. I was still
bold calls, buddy. Come on.
All right. Let me amend that. I thought that was. I'm distracted by Doug McDermott's putrid performance. I'll say bold call. I'll say LeGarrette Blount 3 TDs to make it bold, and for the real life call, I will say Pittsburgh goes into Kansas City and gets the win.
All right. Pete, you're still muted.
Sorry, guys. Still muted there. I was just pulling up some information. Our own Doppel Sykes, Jay Pearson here at Fantasy Labs had a great tweet about Doug McDermott earlier today, saying Doug McDermott would get laughed out of the gym at Irving Middle School, which is apparently where Rashawn Rondo's been staying in shape.
Yeah, exactly.
That was pretty funny. But to go to the bold call, I'll say Ty Freak scores 2 touchdowns in this game versus Pittsburgh, and I'll say the Chiefs win by more than a touchdown in this game.
All right, Sean?
My real-life bold call would be the Patriots only win by single digits. And my DFS bold call, I'll stick with my crazy Terrence Williams play. I would say he's going to be the top wide receiver 5K or less. That's my bold call. I'm not dumb enough to say top receiver, but top 5K and under wide receiver points scored this week.
That's bold. That's bold.
Yeah, that's bold.
All right, well let's get to the skill game props. Adam basically jumped the train there. Let's start there. And I have to say I'm high on Blunt this week, so I'm going to take the over on what you offered there, but I'm assuming you're wanting the over. Anyone interested in the under on Blunt on that? Yeah,
I'll take the under on 1.5 touchdowns. Sure.
Yeah, under here.
Okay, so
double down for both Sean and I. That's sweet.
Yeah. Levitan, any other thoughts over there? I mean, actually, let's talk a little bit about that running game. Like, I think that Patriots game feels like it's going to be a run-heavy game. Like, not a Brady has a huge game. Like, Brady maybe has a sufficient game, and then all of the touchdowns go to a running back. That's what I'm hoping, at least.
Yeah, I mean, so much of Blunt's projection is like how many times do they get tackled at the 1? How many times is there pass interference at the end zone? You know what I mean? So it doesn't feel right to do that, but you would expect New England to live in the red zone, to have an extremely run-heavy approach in the second half. So, I think that, I posted on Twitter, used the Labs Trends thing to look at Blunt's DK points per game based on double-digit favorite versus single-digit favorite versus underdog, and it's just massive difference when they're a double-digit favorite. I mean, I like him at 5,800, even though we almost never play him on DraftKings. Like, I feel way better about Blunt than Lamar Miller, and I think I feel better about Blunt than Ty Montgomery if Sean wants to go head-to-head there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would do that too. I'm on the Levitan side of that.
I'll take Blunt versus Montgomery straight up too.
All right. Ty Island over here. I like it.
I'm living the hedge life. Speaking real quick before we dive into some more props, Freedman, you are a big LaCroix fan. Have you ever had this one before, buddy?
Which one is that?
The pineapple strawberry?
No, I haven't.
Oh, yeah. That's the new chalk in the LaCroix game. It's been a topic many times here on the Labs podcast. But since I diverted the show, I'll throw out some equity. I'll take Alex Smith plus 3 fantasy points versus Dak if you guys want that.
I don't think that's much equity, but I'll take it just to give you action.
What do you think? 2 points. I want to be generous here.
Well, I mean,
1.5, 2. What do you think?
Let me see what we have. We have Dak 20.2 and Alex Smith 19.4.
See, they're close, buddy. I guess that's the answer. Maybe not. All right, I'll be real generous. I'll just go straight up. I'll take Alex Smith over Dak, even though I don't think that's the real.
No, I'll give you one. I'll give you one full DK point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you a point.
Okay. I'll jump on that, but I'm not giving you a point. No, I'll give you a point.
All right, Freedman back to his ways. Perfect.
So one thing, going back to the Patriots Houston game. I don't know how relevant this is because, I mean, who knows what's going to happen there with game flow, but Houston is allowing the 3rd fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks on the year. I mean, that seems like another data point that suggests maybe going away from Brady and towards the running backs if you think the Patriots are going to get a lot of points. Let's talk about some of the quarterbacks here for some skill game props. Is anyone high on Rodgers?
I'd take Ryan over Rodgers if anyone wants Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that. But you're giving that straight? Yeah. There's a $1,200 difference.
Yeah, I'll give that straight. I'll take Ryan over Rodgers.
Nice. All right. I'll take Rodgers.
I'll take Rodgers.
All right.
I mean, this Rodgers dude has lost his mind, man. The guy scores 40 points every week.
Yeah, I like Ryan there.
I'll take Adams. If anyone can think about someone else they'd rather take that's in a comparable range or it makes sense there.
Can I take Edelman?
Let me see here.
Yeah, I'll take Edelman and Dez. They're both cheaper. Lock it up.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to get killed on this one.
Give me Edelman and Dez versus Adams.
Okay.
Oh, I get to pick 2?
Well, not. I mean, Pete's
anyone.
taking
I'm taking anyone cheaper.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, you can if you want to double up on that and take someone else too. I'd be fine with that.
I'll just take Edelman.
Okay, Levitan, you want part of that?
Man, I haven't made up my mind yet about Devontae. Like I've liked him for a long time. Maybe because like I'm in one dynasty league and I've had him the whole way while everyone was like making fun of me about how terrible he is. But like if he hangs on to the football in games, like he can just smash. You know what I mean? Like, and if Jordy's out, I don't know. Pete, you're kind of a Devontae truther too. You don't like him this week?
No, I do like him, but I'll take Edelman and Dez over him. I think that he could have a nice game for sure, and he should be the number one target for Rodgers this week. But I'm curious how Green Bay plans to go against this offense. I mean, if I'm Dallas, I mean, obviously I'm trying to control the ball and keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands, but then I'm also going to dare them to run. So maybe that's a good reason to like Montgomery. Maybe that's why Sean's on him. But I would be doing everything I can to basically eliminate or mitigate Aaron Rodgers right now. So. Yeah, but I do think he's an interesting play, and I loved him in college. He was fantastic, and he would have 17 touchdowns this year if he went to dropped 5 or 6 touchdowns. So he does have a lot of touchdown equity, but I prefer some guys cheaper for sure.
All right, Sean.
I got a prop for you guys. Yeah. So running backs, top scoring DK point running back this week. Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman versus the field. I'll let you guys pick either side.
Ooh.
I'll take the field.
Okay.
It's just whoever's the top scoring, right?
Yeah, so I got Le'Veon Bell and Freeman. You get everybody else.
Yep.
Yeah, I just think that, like, how far do we think the projection difference is between Zeke and Le'Veon?
Yeah, I mean, it's – right now I have them just a couple points.
Yeah, I like Zeke a lot this week, and I think you're getting a decent bit of equity when you factor in, obviously not Devontae Freeman, who I think is a really nice play, but you get LeGarrette Blount, you get Ty Montgomery, Spencer Ware, a really nice game.
Yeah, and Rawls still has potential there too going against Atlanta.
Yeah, and Coleman has a little bit of equity just specifically in this prop because if Freeman does get hurt, I mean that's something that a little boost as well.
Yeah, I'll take the field.
All right, cool.
I do like that prop. That's
so I get Le'Veon and Freeman. Got it.
Yeah, I'll take the field there too. I feel
like we just got suckered, but
that's a great. Why didn't we think of props like that before? We need Sean on there, so I'll throw something out. What do you guys think about this? I'll take Antonio Brown and Doug Baldwin versus the field.
Yeah, come on, dude. I'll take the field all day.
Yeah, I'll take the field.
Yeah, Julio.
Yeah, that's even worse. What if I did Antonio, Julio, and Doug Brown? I mean, obviously.
I have those calculated out. So.
All right, Sean, what do you got?
I mean, so who'd you want? So Brown, Baldwin.
I'm just trying to figure out what versus the field, which receivers do you need?
You would either want to throw in like a Dez or Devontae Adams, and then it's pretty much 50-50 at that point.
Okay, well, I already threw the other one out, so I got waxed there, but I'll throw out Antonio, Julio, and Dez versus the field.
I'll still take the field.
Yeah, I think with receivers, like, aren't you always going to have a positive expectation with the field just because it's so much more volatile?
You're going to get screwed by Tyreek.
Oh, that's going to be tilting. I need to get a lot of Tyreek versus Levitan. I need like 20 props here.
Do you know how – well, let's finish this first.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. I'll be on the Antonio Brown, Julio, and Dez side, actually.
Okay. All right.
Wait. You took Julio there?
Yeah, I took the first one I offered was Doug Baldwin and Antonio versus the field. You guys waxed me on that one.
Okay. Sorry, what was the second one?
Second one, which is supposed to be more equitable based on what Sean was saying.
Yeah.
Antonio, Julio, and Dez Bryant.
Oh, all right. I'll still take the field, but I think you're on the better side of that one.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I know Sean has some data to back that up, but the receiver position is interesting doing these props like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 4-game slate, so you're not going to have as much outliers, but, as last week showed, that's obviously possible. But that's why that prop, he can, take those 3 guys, and he has 50-50 chance, really.
Yeah. Right. Levitan, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so if you want to get to the Ty Fluke portion of the program, we can do that now. over the last 3 weeks, Ty Fluke has 4 touches, 3 touches. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're absolutely butchering this stat.
I butchered it. Over the last 3 weeks, he has 1 touch from scrimmage, then 6 touches from scrimmage, and then 8 touches from scrimmage. Well, what do we think of fair? I'm not talking about special teams. What is a fair touches from scrimmage projection?
I'm not going to get into any of these touches things with you, Levitan. We are arguing something totally different here. We're talking about fantasy points. Because on a per-touch basis, Tyreek is the best. That's my point. I'm not going to argue and say Tyreek's going to get 15 touches this week.
Right. So I'm going to argue that he would have to be so far an outlier in NFL history to sustain his touchdown rate on his number of touches.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's not going to be sustainable for a long period of time. But next year, this year, I'm absolutely buying it. I mean, he's the fastest guy in the field and the most athletic guy in the field by a large margin. All
right. So what do you want to give me?
I'll tell you. What about this? How about a touchdown prop? I think he's very likely to score a touchdown here.
Okay. I mean, I'll gladly give you even money on a touchdown.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'll take no on the touchdown as well.
Right, I mean, awesome. Sean, what's the line going to be in Vegas for Tyreek Hill? Will he score a touchdown?
I don't think they're going to set one on that, but it would be.
He's so irrelevant that they won't even set one.
They set one, by the way, for San Diego, and he was plus 120 to score a touchdown. FYI.
Really?
Yeah. I was gonna say he'll probably be around plus 120 or plus 140.
Which means he's probably really like the real odds, because obviously that's juiced. It's probably plus 140, plus 150, but I don't care. I want Tyreek, and I want him to punish Levitan.
I'm gonna book a flight to Vegas and go bet on that prop for real.
Yeah, you probably can't get that much on the no, buddy. That's silly.
I'll take the no touchdown, but I feel like I'm gonna lose. I already know I'm gonna lose.
Nothing makes me happier than Tyreek. That guy's just unreal.
You want to give me? I'll give you some equity. I'll take Cole Beasley over Tyreek DK points.
Yeah, let's do it. Start naming people that are cheaper. Just go down the list, buddy. Eli Rogers, Allison.
Nah.
Take Terrence Williams too. I mean, Sean, I know you want that.
No, I'm not that crazy.
I'll take Mohamed Sanu over Ty Fluke.
Okay.
So I have Beasley and Sanu, and I have no on will Ty Fluke score a touchdown.
I'll take Tyreek over Hopkins too, if you want that.
Yeah, I'll take Hopkins in that one.
Fine.
I'll take Hopkins.
That's my only chance here, right here, just to get over 500. It's just all resting.
Yeah. Let's hit some tight ends. All right, we need to do some more running backs, right?
Well, one other one real quick. I want to get on Tyreek. I'll give 2 packs of Coors Light to you, Adam, if he doesn't get double-digit fantasy points too. I'll take that he goes over double-digit fantasy points.
Yeah, fine. I mean, the only way he's going to get there is if he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, so he's done that every week except for – he's done that every week since week 10. So 7 straight weeks of double-digit fantasy points. And from week 7 on, he only missed it 1 time.
By the way, Steelers defense has been balling for the last 2 months. I don't think people realize. Not that I obviously have a lot of respect for what Ty Fluke Hill is able to do on the field. I'm not sure that the defense matters that much, but Pittsburgh's defense I think is something that we should at least respect. They're not just matador for Ben to get back on the field.
Yeah, they're cheap too. Yeah.
All right, let's go to tight ends.
Oh, one other sharp point just to back up Tyreek here that actually has validity. All this other stuff is BS. Andy Reid, when given time, given a bye, he's one of the best coaches of all time. In the playoffs here, I think it's really good, and he's going to have a lot of time to scheme up plays to get Tyreek the ball. So another reason I'm actually legitimately bullish on him this week.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Good point. Would that be a reason to be bullish about anyone else on that team, or just
Alex Smith, baby? I mean, we got to start pounding Alex Smith versus Levitan here too. He's so happy if he throws a 40-yard touchdown, just a high A-dot throw or a high throw to Tyreek.
Okay, all right. Let's come up with a prop for Pete being on Alex Smith and Levitan being against him.
I mean, we already have Dak?
Yeah, we had Dak.
Oh, we did. You're right. Yeah. Correct. Okay. All right, let's go to tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite tight end last week was Jared Cook, and I think my favorite tight end this week is Jared Cook again too, especially on DraftKings where Kelsey is 6,100 and Cook is 3,900. You know, like I think it's really hard to fit Kelsey in lineups, and if you're on Team Jam in, there's almost no way to play Kelsey.
Yeah, I like Cook a lot too. I think he's clearly the guy. He's much better than Witten in your guys' mind for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Cook has continued to run a route on almost 90% of Aaron Rodgers' dropbacks, and he's seen at least 8 targets in 3 out of his last 4 games. Like, I don't really ask many questions when it comes to that. The question could be asked, how many will Jared Cook actually catch, because his hands are so bad and he's been so frustrating, but I can't really turn down that kind of usage for 3,900.
Yeah, and the Cowboys give up the second most points in the league to tight ends. It's a great matchup for him.
No, I definitely agree with that. I do like Cook a lot. I think he's the number 1 tight end for value. Sean, do you have anyone else that you like, and do you agree that Cook's number 1?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'm getting Cook on every site right now. I think he fits in well, and he allows you to get a couple stud running backs, and I like him over a lot of these Bennett, Witten, Fedorowicz type players. So I'm having a lot of Cook this week. And are we sure Ladarius Green's? Do we know what's up with him, or?
Do we care that much though? With Kansas City being so elite versus
yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
I still care for tournaments, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Adam, go ahead.
No, I just haven't heard anything. I think we'll find out more tomorrow. I mean, I really don't know. Last week was weird, though, for him to practice on Wednesday and Thursday, and everybody said he's going to be fine, and then show up on Friday, and they say he's had a setback, he's not cleared. I mean, that's scary. I hope the dude's okay. I saw some people saying maybe he should consider giving up football. I'm not going to tell somebody what to do with their life, but if he's, lingering, and he's had so many concussions, it's pretty scary. So I'd be a little bit surprised at this point if he played.
Yeah.
I want to be on the negative side of Martellus Bennett, if there's anyone who would take the positive side, or if we can set some sort of line there.
I'll take Martellus over Fedorowicz.
You want Martellus.
You're trying to get off you want to be down on Martellus, right?
Yeah. So
I'll take Martellus over Fedorowicz. They're 400 apart on DK.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of tough with Martellus because he's in a weird price point. I definitely would take Jared Cook over him, who's cheaper, but
let's see here. I'll take Fedorowicz. I don't love Fedorowicz either, but I really don't like Jared Cook this week.
All short. You don't like Jared Cook?
Sorry, I said Jared Cook. I meant Martellus Bennett.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Why don't you like Martellus?
It's just so the Texans allow the 3rd fewest fantasy points to tight ends. It's a bad spot, and I think they won't need to throw to him. I think they will be in a position where they can afford to run the ball just periodically all the time. So I think it's just a spot where they won't need him, and even if they did need him, it's not a great spot for him anyway.
And I would say that all their guys are healthy, right? Like Amendola's back. I expect Malcolm Mitchell back. They have the drunk dude, Michael Floyd is in the mix. What'd you say, Sean?
No, I was saying, Floyd's in the mix now.
Right, exactly. I mean, they got a lot of they could play Deion Lewis, James White. Like, there's definitely a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Does anybody want I want to short Jason Witten, obviously. Pete, you like Jason Witten?
Sure. Take anyone cheaper than him.
I mean, there's nobody cheaper.
Impossible to do.
Fedorowicz is 100 more.
What's up?
Fedorowicz is 100 more.
Sure, I'll let you have Fedorowicz, whatever.
All right.
I don't feel good about that one. I think Cook's just the chalk. The reason I brought him up is I think he's just kind of a leverage play off of Cook, and you just hope that, I think like we talked about, Zeke and Dez are going to be heavily owned, and if you want to go a little bit different route and just hope to get some leverage with Dak and him in a different roster construction, that's where I think it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have to score a touchdown, and the rest of the tight ends aren't going to have to do very well for him to be a really good GPP play. So he's not going to bust any 20, 30-yard passing play at all. Like the guy he's Captain Checkdown.
So
does anybody have any idea what's going on with Jimmy Graham? Because I really can't figure it out. Like, why does they not throw the ball to the dude anymore?
Yeah, I was going to ask about Graham and whether we would actually think that Cook will outscore Jimmy Graham. Obviously, there's a huge discrepancy in salary there, but just kind of straight up, like I think Cook probably outscores Jimmy Graham this week.
Yeah, it's close. I mean, I have them pretty much neck and neck. It's a situation where Graham might be under-owned, so you can pay up to be contrarian, but there's no way I would even look his way in any cash format. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't get it either.
Doesn't make sense, especially since they just keep losing guys. Like with Lockett out, like why are they not looking to Jimmy Graham more too? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess just throw to Baldwin every play, but
yeah, I'm gonna play. I played Jimmy Graham a bunch in tournaments last week. I'll probably play him again in tournaments this week until I figure out why they're not throwing the ball to him.
It's a good matchup for him.
Yeah.
Going against the Falcons, it's a nice matchup.
Yep.
Pete, any defenses that you're really high on?
Oh, the Chiefs. Give me the Chiefs this week. I love that. I mean, I think the Pats are clearly the number one overall option against Brock Woltweiler, but yeah, I like the Chiefs quite a bit as the next defense. And if you're looking to save, I mean, I think the Falcons are interesting given how bad the offensive line has been for Seattle. But I really like the Chiefs this week. Their defense is playing a lot better. If Big Ben is limited at all in terms of his movement, that could certainly help. Obviously, it's scary going against Le'Veon and AB, but I just like how opportunistic this Kansas City Chiefs defense is. And obviously, when you have Tyreek Hill as your special teams guy, there's a lot of upside. So, yeah, I like the Chiefs and the Pats and the Falcons at first glance.
All right, well, anyone you're willing to take and then give us two?
Not really, because if I take the Pats first two, it's kind of tough. And, yeah. I mean, I'd take the Chiefs and the Falcons versus any other two. You take Pats and someone else. I guess that's probably an interesting one. Anyone want that? Chiefs versus two other ones?
Yeah, I'll take Pats and Steelers.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Levitan, you want in on that?
Yeah, I'll take Pats and Steelers too, but I totally agree with you on the Falcons. I mean, this Seattle offensive line going on the road into a really loud dome, like they could just absolutely crumble, you know what I mean? And even though Atlanta's defense, I think, is missing secondary pieces, they've shown a vastly improved pass rush this year. So, yeah, I think that Falcons defense is a good play. But, yeah, I'll take Sean's side of that too.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. The Steelers is interesting. They are playing well. Just the Chiefs are not really the ideal offense to go against with Alex Smith. But
right,
I get it. I mean, not that Alex Smith's so great, even though I've talked him up a lot, but he's not that turnover prone. And I do expect him to run. One guy we didn't talk about at all, just real quick, is Spencer Ware. I mean, I know he's going to play. Do you guys like him at all this week?
Yeah, I feel like I always get him wrong. He's one of my few guys that I'm always on the wrong side lately. I love him when I think he's going to get 20 touches, and this week I just can't say that. And I still think he might be the going back. I have no idea, but I just think this week I'm not going to mess around too much at running back and just take the studs and kind of dig deeper at wide receiver. So I probably won't have much Ware, even though I do like him in general.
Yeah, I think my thing with Ware is like a lot of the other running backs, like even Lamar Miller, we saw you can run into a 30-touch game. You know what I mean? And Spencer Ware is almost always capped around 18, 19 because they play Charkandrick and Alex Smith runs, blah, blah, blah. So
they give it to Tyreek to run.
Yeah.
Tyreek runs, yeah.
They give Tyreek the ball more than just a little bit around the goal line. That's they want to do that, and that really limits, I think, Ware's upside, especially if he's not getting those extra carries.
Yeah, you want to give a touchdown maker the ball near the goal line. Makes sense.
I'm going to be so tilted. He's going to score. Oh,
my favorite part, at least Odell Beckham didn't do anything, but there's two things that are just hilarious on Twitter, on the Twitter machine, is when Odell Beckham scores on a 60-yard slant, Levitan's mentions go through the roof. Tyreek Hill is I don't know, he's rivaling Beckham now, isn't he, for you, Adam?
Yeah, I think I have – well, both of them have separate off-field issues. Odell is a huge dork. That's obviously not nearly as bad as being a criminal like Tyreek.
To be very clear, like I really don't like that I'm endorsing Tyreek at all because he's a horrible human being. But on the football field,
Right.
kind of my brand, kind of player.
Yeah, so it's different. It's a different kind of hate. It's not a hate for Tyreek. I just don't like rostering gadget players, and I think Tyreek's a gadget player. Period.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so this is sort of outside the realm of DFS, but projecting Tyreek Hill forward, do we think that he becomes one of those guys that eventually gets the ball more often and becomes more of a volume guy and transitions into something like, I don't know, like a poor man's Steve Smith or something just because he is such a playmaker?
I think that they'll get him the ball more and more next year. It's just, I mean, the one thing that Adams hit on that, it's clearly not sustainable. You look at Dante Hall, Devin Hester, I mean, all these guys who are just freaks in terms of speed and elusiveness. He's going to lose that at some point, and it'll probably be pretty quickly. So next year, I'm definitely bullish on him relatively. But, long term, I just don't know if he's going to continue to be the fastest guy in the field by far.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my, if you're in like a dynasty league or something, I'd probably be looking to move him. But next year, I definitely think, depending on the format, he could make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think with these gadget guys, like fans are always like, why don't they give Devin Hester the ball 20 times a game, and going back further, like why doesn't Dave Meggett get the ball 1,000 times a game? Why doesn't Darren Sproles, like even now in Philly, people are like, they should give the ball to Darren Sproles 30 times a game. He's our best back. Like you don't realize these guys can't handle that. You know what I mean? And like, maybe they can't handle it, or maybe the coaches don't want them to handle that. So I think that's going to follow Tyreek around a little bit.
All right. Sean, any final props you want to fire off here?
Yeah, let's I don't think we've addressed them too much head on, but let's do a Julio Jones straight up over under DK point prop. I'll just throw out 18.5 points.
I mean, I don't even, without looking at anything, I'll just go over because he's my boy and I love him.
All right.
I'll go over too because I love Julio.
Yeah, I'll go over.
He's the man.
Any others? That's a good one.
We're not really worried about the matchup, right? They move him around pretty much. Yeah. He's going to be fine. I think people might overreact to the matchup. So,
you like Doug Baldwin straight up over him at all? I know you're high on him.
Let me see.
No True Font is definitely nice for Baldwin for sure.
I already have enough equity fading Julio at this point. If you guys hammer the over there, so. I would take Baldwin. You're going to have to give me some points, though, like a 1.5 or something.
All right, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I'll do that for you.
I'll do that.
Nice. Cool. You guys are such gentlemen about this.
Yeah, we're not freaking shrewd like you, Freedman.
Yeah.
Although in Freedman's defense, he last week he was extremely generous. We finally gave him enough crap, and then he got waxed. So.
It was OBJ and Ajayi. That was not good. All right, I think we're going to call it here. Sean, thanks for being on the show. And everyone be sure to follow him on Twitter at @the_oddsmaker. Also follow Adam and Pete at Adam Levitan and CSURAM88. And you can follow me at Matt F. The Oracle. I'm Matthew Freedman, and this has been the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for the NFL Divisional Playoffs. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podbean, and don't forget to check out our NFL dashboard with positional breakdowns and matchup previews out by Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck, and we will see you next week.